Hello and welcome to News 9 Plus at the Racine Dialogue. I'm joined by Ms. Jane Holl Lute, American diplomat, security analyst and former Deputy Secretary at the DHS. Ms. Lute, welcome to News 9 Plus.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell me about the last 3 days. What were your impressions about the Racine Dialogue?
I think the Racine Dialogue is the most important gathering of its kind on the planet in a year. I've been to a number of these over the years, and I've been to Racine over the years. It is the most exciting, the most diverse, and the most intense conference of its kind. I consider it the hottest ticket on the planet.
What makes you say that? What was the one big takeaway for you? Why is it different from the other conferences?
Is it different in the quality of ideas? The quality of ideas are really quite excellent. Is it different in the subject matter that it covers? The subject matter is vast, but also focused. It has a point and a point of view. But it's really different in the diversity of voices that it brings together. Not just the obvious, geographical differences, perhaps racial differences, gender differences, but generational differences. This is a place where young people and established practitioners can come together and really exchange ideas in an honest and respectful but exciting format.
You're also the president and CEO of an internet security company. And this is all the news these days, the hacking attempts made by individuals and companies and hackers believed to have ties with governments. How do you stay one step ahead of the hackers?
Well, first I have to say I stepped down from being the CEO, but I am still on the board. It's the Center for Internet Security. And it was founded to help create confidence in a connected world. 20 years ago, it was a very different challenge in those days than it is today. Can we have confidence in our connections? The internet is older than most of the population on the planet. Yet there's not a single thing we can do online confident that our safety, our security, the integrity of our information, our identities is preserved. And we really have to change that. We use it every day. We rely on it. You're holding the internet in your hand. You have more computing power in your hand than the space program in the United States had at the height of space exploration in the United States. And so it is a never-ending challenge, and one that we not only have to stay ahead of as individuals. So do we patch our phones? Do we protect our information? Do we use two-factor authentication? But at every level, in our schools, in our businesses, and in our governments.
So recently we had this very high-profile hacking attempt at, it was a successful attack on the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, which we believe is tied to certain state entities. Now the United States, with all its advances in cybersecurity, has been at the receiving end of many such attacks, and literally hundreds of billions of dollars worth of intellectual property has been stolen. So what is the solution for this kind of mass cyber attacks when you have countries that have literally built fortunes out of attacking on a very a global scale?
Yeah, this is, I think, a really important question. And is there a solution, right? I think there are approaches. When automobiles were just invented or when they were scarce on the road, people sort of did, whoever could afford them, drove in whatever way they wanted to. And safety was not a real concern. But as automobiles proliferated, so did safety innovations, although slowly. Seatbelts were originally invented in the 1930s, and in the United States they were never required until 50 years later in the 1980s. So it takes us some time to adapt. But I think it's also a part of that adaptation requires that we be brutally honest with ourselves. I think there is a very high degree of cyber illiteracy among us. We think this is too technical and beyond our understanding. That's nonsense. We don't all need to become technologists to take the basic safety measures that we know work, because we're all on the same internet. And 90% of the threats that we face are shared threats. So for example, when I send my daughter out to school in the morning, I don't brief her on streptococcal this and meningococcal that. I tell her to cough into her sleeve, don't share food, And if you're not feeling well, we'll keep you home. You know, similarly, I think we need to understand what basic hygiene is and see if we can't use it. But it's important to know that the motivations of hackers, especially on this scale, are not all the same. Some hackers are stealing intellectual property. Other hackers intend to be disruptive. Other hackers still just want to make money. The result to the victim is essentially the same. So we have a lot of work to do in terms of integrating our understanding, again, from governments to corporations, to private sector, to individuals.
Now, in the past, you've spoken about the misuse of social media and digital media to, harass and attack women's dignity. How important is cyber hygiene to thwart all of this? You just mentioned some of that, but
yeah. So you can take all the measures. Cyber hygiene typically refers to things like two-factor authentication or having a privacy screen on your phone, and don't let people copy you, observe you putting in your code to activate your phone. But what you're really talking about is the abusive use of easy access and information and disinformation to troll people, to dox them, to harass them. And this is increasingly a problem, not only for public figures, members of the media, members of the entertainment business. It's increasingly a problem for ordinary people, whether we see high schoolers bullying each other online, or we see women being harassed and stalked in very dangerous and scary ways. We as societies need to join forces against this kind of misuse.
And about the weaponization of the internet by very powerful countries that have kind of totalitarian regimes, how does one respond to that?
This is a real phenomenon that's going on in the world. There are countries that are so-called weaponizing the internet. It's often confused with spying. People are outraged that countries are spying on each other. We've been spying on each other since Jericho. So that's not really new. What is new is that governments are very sophisticated and targeted, and they're targeting not just other governments, not just each other's militaries, but they're targeting each other's publics. And this is really new for us. And again, we have to come together to address it with brutal honesty.
So you've also served in the United Nations as special coordinator to improve the organization's response to sexual exploitation and abuse. What are the challenges and opportunities in such a onerous undertaking?
The fundamental challenge of sexual exploitation and abuse is that it is an ever-present danger for women and girls and vulnerable everywhere. The LGBTQI community as well. It's an ever-present danger. There is no country, no school, no church, no other religious institution, no business, no family where this has not occurred. Think about that for a moment. This is an ever-present danger. How can we reconcile ourselves to 50% of the population being subjected to this kind of treatment? There's not a woman you know over the age of 15, not a woman you know. Ask them whether or not they have been subjected to unwanted words, touching, assaults, or worse. There's not one who can say, that's never happened to me, because it has. That's outrageous. And when you are a victim of this kind of sexual harassment and behavior, what do you want most of all? Number one, you want to be believed. You want to be believed, and you want to be supported. And you certainly don't want and don't deserve to be vilified and made to believe that you are the problem. You are not the problem. The problem is this behavior, and we can do better at stamping it out.
Ms. Lute, thank you very much. It's very great speaking with you, and look forward to meeting you at the Racine Dialogue next year.
Thank you very much for having me.